bag a rain of missiles from High Flying Dice Games. This is a game company that is houses mainly Paul Rohrbaugh's designs. I don't know if there's any. I'd have to go back and look to see if they've covered anything else or have any other designers, but this is primarily Paul Rohrbaugh, and I think the company itself, High Flying Dice Games, is run by him and his wife. Relatively small operation, one of the smaller war game publishers out there that are relatively prolific. I mean, if you go and look on BGG, for example, there's quite a few games under their belt. And one thing I do like about there's two good and one bad about their games. The two good are, number one, they cover some rarely covered topics. For example, this one here, Rain of Missiles, is the Gaza Missle Crisis in November 2012. Probably not a lot of games out there on this. I mean, some of the times the games they have might be the only game ever published on it. A game I just covered recently from them, and you can probably check out on my High Flying Dice playlist, is Operation Praying Mantis. I really do think this might be the only game that covers this, or at least covers this specifically. There might be some naval games that you could recreate some of the action, or might have a mission for it, but this one is a game dedicated to it. So that's something I like. Is I'm a easy target for topics that are off the beaten path. I enjoy my bulge in Gettysburg and Waterloo like the next grognard, but I do like the rare and obscure topics from time to time, and seeing how they're covered and trying to learn a little bit more about history, which is one of the main reasons why I do wargaming. So the topic coverage is important to me. High Flying Dice, if you look at they cover a lot of Vietnam as well, and there are Vietnam war games out there, but again, not as many as World War II. More than Korea probably, but not as many as World War II. Anyway, so I like the coverage of their games. I also like that they have a unique perspective. Paul Rohrbaugh has some unique mechanics sometimes, and a lot of times he uses those mechanics over and over. Like, for example, he uses cards, standard 52 deck card deck. Now you might not use the whole deck. You might just split it up, and one side gets the black, one side gets the red, and it might be used for different things, but like initiative or some other things. And you might not use the whole deck. You might just have to use like the certain cards out of there, and they mean certain things, right? So that's an interesting aspect of using a 52 deck of card. I mean, most people have dice lying around, and if you grew up in my household, there was always plenty of decks of cards lying around. My family was big time card players. Mom and dad would have a regular card game night with neighbors and play, pinochle or I don't think they played bridge, but they would play a lot of pinochle and other, canasta and some other games as well. Taught us canasta and Liverpool rummy and all kinds of different card games growing up. So should have a deck lying around. So a lot of his designs, latch onto that or use that availability of that resource. So those are a couple of the good things about that. I like the coverage and his different perspective on things. The bad side is that this is a really small company, right? So this is really print and play type quality. Your maps are going to be just the graphics are decent. I mean, you got Bruce Yerian is doing the graphics, but they're not mounted. They're not even on thicker stock or the nice shiny paper that you might get in a GMT game. The rules just might be printed out and stapled, right? And the counters, come on, I think, regular card stock. Now this one came with a little bit thicker counters. And I think they do have at least one game. I was just looking around, and I got this from Noble Knight, and I know there was one game on Noble Knight that had die cut counters, but that's very rare. I think I only found one of their games, at least from Noble Knight. Now, I think they have their own site as well. I've looked at their own site back in the day. I think there might be more than one game that has die cut. I'm not certain, but this one has. So there's three types. There's the die cut, which I think there's very few games. There's the thicker counters, which you'll see in this bag, and then there are which are not die cut. You have to cut them yourself, but they are on thicker stock. And then there's, I think, they come just regular card stock. Maybe might be the other type of counters. Anyway. Enough of that, the good, bad, and the ugly of it. Here's the rules yourself. As you can see, these are stapled here. This is from the rules, starting to get into it. So it really doesn't explain what's going on here. But basically, it's going to be the missile strike during 2012. This is a solitaire game. It doesn't say that on here, but I'm pretty sure this is. That simulates that, right? So let's get inside the bag and see if we can find out a little bit more about this game as I've gone on too long. Here we go. So you got just a cover page here. Maybe that's just the cover to show you what the game is. Here's the map. So all the bits are kind of folded in the map. We'll pull those out here. And the map is, a little bit thicker paper. But there is your map. You've got a diplomatic victory track. You've got your Israeli MVP track. Operations Impulse track. AM Impulse, PM Impulse, and Night Impulse. The turn record track. You've got your Hamas MVP track. So I think that's your victory points. Then you've got your map here with all the different locations. And I think that the missile strikes kind of go in this direction. Depending on the type of missiles, I think you can go deeper into inland. So you've got Israel, Palestine, West Bank, Jordan, Gaza Strip here, and Egypt. So there's your map. Here are your counters, and these are thick. I mean, these are probably as thick as maybe a decision games type. They're older magazine type counters, but they're not die cut. You're gonna have to cut these out yourself. And these are dual sided, so there's stuff on the back as well. So you get the counters there. There is some errata, looks like here, or addenda in this case, go along with the game. Then we have there's a player aid. Here's a player aid. You got random events and odd result, and some of the explanation and maybe some of the counters here. And that's single-sided. Then we get the rules of play, which I think are just going to be, black and white. How many pages are these? Are 7 pages. Looks like it's dual column. Here's your introduction. Here's your game map scale, sequence of play. Arena Missiles is a low complexity solitaire simulation game of the Gaza Missle Crisis of November 2012. The player takes the role of the Israeli military high command as it attempts to fend off the missile strikes launched by Hamas from Gaza. The player is also attempting to manage the crisis in order to keep it from escalating into a larger and bloodier conflict that could engulf the entire Middle East. The game's rules control the actions of the Hamas forces in Gaza. Okay, so there's a little bit of a political, as you see here, they've got this diplomatic victory. There's a little bit of a political aspect to this as well, of trying to not turn this into a complete military action that spills over into something bigger. Here's that same randoms event and odds result table. And the rest of this is just the rules. Talking about the different missile launchers. You got the in phase, you got special units here. There's Israeli commandos. Here's the game setup. There's some history there. Here's winning the game and designer notes and some additional reading here. And as you can see, your game design is Paul Rohrbaugh. Editing is Lisa Rohrbaugh, so is his wife. So I think this husband and wife team here, I believe. Zachary Waltz also with the editing, and Bruce Yerian is the graphics. I think Bruce Yerian does a lot of the graphics on High Flying Dice games. And this is an interesting chart here, talking about the different Hamas rocket threats. So interesting chart there. So there you have it. This is a rain of missiles, high flying dice game designed by Paul Rohrbaugh. You'll need an opaque container. Okay, anybody has a mucker cup. You need a 1 6-sided dice and 1 10-sided die, and that's it. No cards in this. A lot of his designs use cards or regular playing cards, or even sometimes has special cards printed that are based on regular playing cards. This one looks like it doesn't. You just need a 6-sided and a 10-sided, which, you know, anybody who's played D&D should have a bunch of those lying around the house. Anyway, so this one looks like I can pretty get this the table relatively quickly. It's just a matter of cutting out these counters. And I'm horrible at stuff like that. That's why the do-it-yourself aspect always kind of shy away from, because I'm gonna have to get like an X-Acto knife or some kind of thick knife to cut these out and not butcher them in the process. Anyway, so that is what you get in a bag of a rain of missiles. Love to know your thoughts on this. Have any of you that have tried high flying dice games? What do you think about them in general? You know, the game designs, the topics, or the do-it-yourself nature. Any of that, I'd love to hear about that, or about this game specifically. If I've seen some coverage on this or some play on this on one of the channels, and this looks kind of interesting. So that's one reason I wanted to pick it up. I like the topic, was interesting. And somewhat rare, and I know the approach from Mr. Rohrbaugh is always kind of unique, and I always like to see what that point of view is. And the fact that it's solitaire. My kids are getting older and starting to get out of the house, and so I'm going back to solitaire mode. Not that I ever got them to do a lot of war games with me, but they're not even doing regular board games with me as much. Still doing some, but not as much. So starting to look at the solitaire stuff again. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Love to know your thoughts. And most importantly, thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate that. And let me know you stopped by dropping a comment. I'll listen to you, whatever it is. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and have a good one. Thanks for watching.